Welcome to another episode of the Uprooting Passion series. I am so excited to be here today with Ilaria. How are you? We met in Rome at John Cabot, and so it's really a special moment to get to interview you today.
Well, thank you, Kayla, for having me. It's so nice to be here. We met JCU during an event. We never met before, and it just clicked. I think we have so much in common, and it's so nice to be here and be part of this project.
Thank you so much. And just hopping right in, where were you born and raised?
So I was born and raised in Rome, Italy. I've always lived here until I finished university because the American uni that we both attended to is in Rome. I don't define myself as a city girl, even though I've been in Rome, but because Rome is so big, um, I spent most of my childhood uh, close to the beach because yes, we have the sea in Rome.
Yeah.
Uh, so um, yeah, I love Rome, and I just think it's the most beautiful city in the world. So yeah, so proud of being born and raised here.
Very cool. So you were close to the ocean then, always growing up, not in the city.
Yes. No, yes. I've enjoyed the city later in you know in my adulthood, I would say. So I actually moved a little bit closer to the city center when I started university. I experienced the city life when I was older, and I think it was good that way.
Yeah,
Better. Yeah.
definitely. And would you say were some of the influential forces in your upbringing, whether it was, family or just the nature or culture?
I would say family first, as the biggest influence. I've grown up in a family where both of my parents, as a job, they travel a lot. So my mom has worked in the airport for her whole life, and my dad worked in the Italian telecom company, the first, the biggest brand, and he traveled a lot as well in conferences. He traveled a lot in the States and other part of the world. So they really want me and my brother to grow up as international people. So I'm trying to transfer that mindset that you need to be out of your comfort zone to leave Italy and explore and find your place in the world. So, which is very different from the usual, would say, Italian sort of upbringing, meaning that I have a lot of friends, my childhood friends that never left the city or never left Italy, and they they are not sort of interested in knowing what's outside and what's more that the world has to offer. So yeah, I've always been that friend that is always somewhere like, oh, you like right now you're in Australia or right now in the UK. What next? So um,
That's really interesting talking about your parents' careers, mentioning like your father working in television. Did you get to go with him to work ever or get to see anything cool?
Not really, not really. No, he was very busy, and he get to a point where, uh, you know, I I was 6 years old, and he decided to stop traveling, just trying to change the job and be more at home
Yeah.
because he realized that he's been traveling so much, he was kind of missing out on my growth in my childhood.
Yeah.
So it got to a point where I traveled a lot with my mom and dad, but I was too little. So I traveled a lot in the States, for example, but I don't remember a thing because I was less than 6 years old. Yes.
Wow. Wow, that's really interesting. So all over the United States.
Well, yeah, mainly the East
Okay.
Coast. never been to California, for example.
Yeah.
This is a place I really want to see, and I want to get to a point in my life where I'm like, okay, I want to travel like as much as possible in the States and see what's out there, because I was so little, so I don't remember a thing. So the only place that I managed to visit when I was older, it was New York and Boston. That's it.
Which are really great places to visit for sure, to get a whole
Yeah.
myriad of cultures and experiences. But who would you say was your biggest role model in your upbringing?
I'd say, and I know this sounds so cheesy, but say my mom. So I would say also my dad, but mostly my mom. It's just like right now that I'm getting older, I understand that a lot of my traits and way of being, for example, at work, like my aspirations and stuff, are have been really influenced by her spirit of, like always working hard for yourself, like not being afraid of any challenges you might have, and question yourself when you need to, like my change from full-time employee to self-employed. That was a big moment, and it took me about 6 months to to get to that decision. And my mom was the very first one to say, like, what do you need, are you losing anything, do you have a mortgage, or do you have kids? And it was just, she was trying to get me into that mindset where I don't need to be afraid in situations where I might not need to. I'm a overthinker, so I overthink everything all the time. Um, so I've been overthinking for the last 6 months, and she just helped me to, make that extra step for myself and really like think of the situation on a under a different light. And she's always been like that throughout my whole life. So she's been very supporting, and looking at her journey, like from life's perspective, but also from a work perspective, it is something that I really admire to today. So
Yeah, and I would imagine that, growing up and her being working in travel, or you said like with the airport, like I could see how that would maybe influence a sort of entrepreneurial spirit, because you have to be willing to kind of be open to moving or doing something on a whim, or not always having like predictability, because entrepreneurship is so unpredictable. So I could see how that
I
would
know.
be really influential. And was there a particular like catalyzing event or moment where you're like, okay, I need to go into business for myself?
Well, yeah, there was a moment, and again, because I'm an overthinker, I thought about it for a long time, but I got to a point in my life before that moment where I realized I needed to make a change. Is because I've experienced in my life before moment where I really felt so lost, and I don't know, I just didn't want to get into that like place anymore, like the very dark place where we completely lost, like burnout. And like I always been a child that really wanted to do as much as she could, and I wanted to prove myself in any way. So as soon as I finished uni, like I was like, yeah, I wanted to experience the world, so I'm just gonna travel to Australia. So I moved, from a, in I don't know, in 2 days, I decided I want to go to Australia. And yeah, I did all the visa things and prepared like my suitcases, and left. Um, and I stayed there for like almost a year. And then after that, I was like, okay, this is not done. I don't want to go back to Italy. I want to, prove to myself that I can get a job, like a proper job in business somewhere else in Europe. And then I moved to the UK. I find an internship there. Like I started, my career there. So, and I had the greatest experience in my life. Like, also today I'm still sort of like bringing that experience into today's job situations, like my work situations. I'm as a self-employed, so but I got to a point there when I was in the UK that I was so tired, like I never actually stopped and think what I wanted to do with my life. And I realized that I was in work situations where I was bullied, and the culture was very toxic. The CEO wasn't a leader that I would follow. So, like with the coincidence of COVID happening, and I was super afraid. Like, are you okay there? Like, what's going on? And I was at such a low point, and even my closest friends that were living with me at the time was like, "Why don't you take a break? Just stop and go back home." I mean, things are happening here, and I think the world's gonna stop for a little bit. So why don't
Yeah.
you do it too? So yeah, maybe. So I just like, okay, I quit the job, and in a week I just packed up my stuff and I left to go back to Italy. And those 3 months where I was unemployed, and the world literally stopped, like no one was working, was nothing was happening around me, like even like I wasn't feeling that pressure of finding a new job. Like I just needed to work on myself. So that experience really traumatized me, and but also helped me to understand that I didn't want to feel that way any longer. So when later last year, like I got to a point where I was so tired, like I wasn't finding joy in my job anymore. Like I couldn't see any career growth. And the idea of like be self-employed at some point, I wanted to do at some point in my life. But you always get that thought in your head where maybe you're not ready, you're not like senior enough to go into the kind of employment to just do things for yourself, until you talk with people that believe in you, and they've been following you for the whole journey of life, and they look at you like you can do it, like just try at least, like don't regret it, because you get to a point where you regret not making that extra step for yourself. And so I did. So I quit the job, and I started uh, all the procedures to become a self-employed, and I opened my small company, because in Italy you can also open this very small company. I do have a little company, and have a few clients now. Now it's been 3 months. I mean, 3 months. It's 3 months journey, and it's going really well.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. You're a business.
Thanks.
You are
I am,
a
yeah.
business owner. You are a boss, a CEO, if you will. But I could see
Yes.
how it's probably like weird to like think like that after
Yeah.
being or having that journey. Like it's probably weird to think of yourself that way, but you're
It
yeah.
is. Every morning I wake up, I'm like, so I don't have anyone just to get a pat on the shoulder, or oh no, this is wrong. Like it's just so different and difficult sometimes to realize that, but it's a good feeling. Like yeah, I wouldn't go back. I mean, for now, I wouldn't go back.
No, that's awesome. And I think like there's such a stigma too, like that, oh, like I think a lot of people say like the younger generations today, like that we job hop too much and we try to do more entrepreneurial things, like it's a bad thing. But I've just come to realize even early in my career, like it's really a lot of workplaces, if not all workplaces, have toxicity, and it's really hard to find really positive cultures in the workplace. And it's very ideal that everybody could be their own boss and be able to contribute in a society that aligns with their personal interests. But by you taking that first step and doing that, and I think especially in Italy, it's really important that we have
Mhm.
more voices like yourself that are kind of paving that way, because I would imagine maybe there's more barriers to becoming a business owner in Italy than opposed to, like, say, America, where like the process here is you just kind of like $100, you can have an LLC like in 2 days, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And I would say the biggest enemy here in terms of I would say it's not like a more like a barrier on opening
okay.
like a company, because they're very different type of companies, but it's mostly the mindset of, oh, I'm losing a full-time job. Like we have very good sort of like job security laws in place,
Yeah.
so it's very hard for you to be fired, which is very different from the UK or the US. Like I never experienced that thought of like being secure because now I have a full-time job. So it never like occurred to me to be to work less and just to to be comfortable in what I'm doing, just because no one is gonna tell me anything. So a lot of people, they don't really want to change because of that, because they get into their mindset and I'm like, yeah, I have here is called the post office, so like the sort of like fixed sort of job position, like the no one will take you away, like take it from you. So um yeah, that is the problem. Like and when I told my former like managers and and CEO or whatever, and they're like, oh, are you sure, like you put yourself in a position where you're not you're not safe anymore with your job? Like you could have clients that don't want to work with you anymore. You might have months where you you don't work. I'm like, yeah, I know that. Like I'm 100% sure, like sure that this could happen. But the thing is, if I work hard for myself, and I will work even harder, because I'm in a position when I can do that, and I set limits, for myself. I'm not afraid. Like I shouldn't be worried about that. I should be worried if I could I work in a place where like my job is not recognized as it should be, or like you don't let me grow because you don't really give me a reason for that. It just yeah, it's a completely different mindset. And a lot of people, they're not able to do that, and I feel like it comes down to that international mindset. Like if you're never like left Italy, or if you don't read in, I don't know, even international news, like you're not curious about how other countries are working and what's their mindset. It just just stay in your comfort zone, and you never evolve
Yeah,
in that sense.
absolutely. And I think that, like you've mentioned, it seems to just be like a continuous trend, is like from a young age, you've always really challenged yourself or wanted to, like you said, like prove yourself in a way. And I think that that is like necessary for entrepreneurship, because it's always going to be you versus yourself. Nobody's going to be like, hey, you need to work harder, or hey, you need to find more clients. Like, so of course, like there's that big risk, but if you have that mindset, like you will overcome it for sure, because you're not going to want to lose what you've created for yourself, and it's going to always keep pushing you. So I think that that's really
Yeah.
necessary, but also just really admirable as well. So um recently you had a post talking about how you started to hate content. And I really related to that, because I feel like there's always like the people who say like people who work in social media hate social media for like themselves, or never have
Yes.
their own social media. And I was just wondering if you could kind of like talk through that process you went through when you started like asking yourself questions, and kind of like working through that sort of mental block.
Well, again, because I've always been interested in learning more, sort of became a generalist, like a marketing generalist. This is something that a lot of people, they look at that role. Um, in a bad way because you're not specialist in anything. You might be even specialist in something. It's just like you don't consider yourself like, yeah, I don't consider myself like a total 100% social media manager because I can do this and this and that. And that's the beauty of it. But the thing is, like, sometimes when you develop that, that kind of role that maybe a company will give, different title. Like, for example, I was a digital marketing specialist, but because I was doing everything, and from a CRM, from social media, from content, events, and stuff like that. um, and and then I decided that I wanted to go into content because I could be more creative, and I kind of want to drop out all the other, like, very analytical sort of like tasks, roles. The CRM, for example, is very data driven. You look after a database, so not really inspirational. And then you continue on that path. You change job, like, from, in my experience, I changed job from a content marketing specialist to a content marketing manager. So I was stepping up the game in content, let's say this way. And you get to a point where, like, okay, I'm doing this so much, like, and then again, like, especially when you say like you work in social media and kind of hate social media, say, yes, it's true, like, this happens, it's real, like, because you look at social media every day, 8 hours a day maybe. And for a company, like, you're managing accounts, clients and stuff, and then I'm like, oh my god, and then I should, like, do something for myself, like do some social media for myself. Because again, like, for example, on LinkedIn, I know that I need to build my personal branding, and I want to talk about stuff, but maybe at the end of the day, I'm so tired. I'm like, oh my god, like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Just sometimes I wish I could do something completely different. Like, I don't know, because especially with content, you need to be creative, and you get the the creative block. Um, pretty much, I wouldn't say all the time, but you get to a point, like, for me today, I'm like, oh my god, like, what am I writing about today? Like, I had so many ideas, like, during the weekend, and today I'm like, oh my god. So that is very important when you get to those moments, and you need to take a moment for yourself to really scan all your experiences, what you're really good at. And it's very difficult, especially for people that um they'll feel like they're not good enough. And this is something like imposter syndrome for me. It's just like always at its peak. I'm trying to just, like, battle it, like, fight it from times to times, but it happens, especially with people that, like, especially marketing generalists or generalists in general. It's a funny word game. But when you're good at so many things, but sometimes you feel lost, and you feel like, oh yeah, I'm good at all this stuff, but what about this thing? Like, in the maybe the market needs to be a specialist in this thing, and I'm not good enough at that. So it's a lot sometimes, but you need to be good at ask yourself the right questions, and maybe just take a moment to think about the projects that you did, the feedback that you received, and kind of talk to yourself and say, hey, you did that, you those are our results, you did a great job. You kind of need to do a pep talk to yourself, and yeah, and then realize what's the achievements that you brought to the table. And you need to get into the mindset that whatever you're doing, it's good for your growth. Could be even like a mistake that you made, or like a great thing that you did. It's always a learning curve, and you need practice. And it's just, yeah, it's just a matter of asking yourself the right questions.
I love all your posts, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
So I saw that and
Thank
I
you.
was like, hating content? Yes, I get there. But yeah, I think that's so important I kind of read it as like ask yourself the right questions, like you said, as opposed to questioning yourself. Because I think if you
Mhm.
question yourself, like oh my gosh, if I'm not good enough, then it's like that'll really like can ruin your mindset and just really send you into a whole rut. And so I really like that sort of like reframing it as like ask yourself the right questions, don't question yourself. So that was, I
Yes,
really like that.
absolutely.
And kind of leading into my next question, what is sort of your personal mission or philosophy with marketing that you kind of bring to the table with your business?
So my biggest philosophy is just to apply creativity. And what I mean by creativity is not like being good at painting or like drawing. It's just having that flexible approach and on anything that could be a project, from building a brand, or from, I don't know, like, yeah, creating a content calendar. You just to have that approach where there's no limits to your imagination, and there are no limits to creating things. Sometimes, especially when we work with content, we look at other people work and what's working, what's not. Like, I'm always constantly looking up, like, oh, those posts on LinkedIn that work really well. What should I do? I mean, I should do the same thing, or like maybe just looking at brand campaigns that worked. So sometimes uh, you get stuck in just looking up to other people's creation, and you don't create anything that is original. So it's an exercise that you need to do. You need to do how to look up other people's work, but then trying to find your style and your voice, and then uh, being adaptable and flexible enough to generate something out of that. And then so that's one. So creativity is one big thing, and then my other approach that sometimes I keep forgetting is data. So data is a big thing in marketing at any level, and it's very important to be able to analyze data, because it really gives you the route to and the path to follow when things are going right or where things are going wrong. Um, I've always worked in a way that is very data driven, and I'm very thankful for my operations experience. Before like going into like marketing, I was an operations manager and an account manager. So that those two experiences really helped me with shaping my mindset into more a data driven mindset in that sense. So yeah, you need to know how to read data, and you need to know where to find it. So it's not really a philosophy; it's a skill that you need to have. But it's yeah, you need to, if you're not naturally drawn to it, you have to train yourself to it. And finally, ask questions. This is something again that sometimes I just take things for granted. I'm like, oh, maybe, and then then you start thinking about it. It's like, yeah, but if you're asking a lot of questions, and sometimes you don't want to do that because you don't want to feel like, oh, maybe I look dumb, or maybe looks like I'm not getting it. But by asking questions, a lot of them, you can really understand what your clients wants to achieve, what's thinking, and what are the expectations really. So you don't need to be afraid of asking questions ever. It's the biggest hack in my experience.
Yeah. You said about creativity because I think that's like creativity is becoming so there's less of it, I think, because of online trends and everybody's so influenced by what they see. And probably not even because they know it, I think. Like it's almost like this unconscious thing that just happens because of algorithms and how the nature of social media. And I I'm kind of new to like I've just been doing my own personal brand, and I don't do it necessarily for profit by any means. It's just something that I really enjoy doing and have hopes to kind of make more like lucrative in the future. But I saw something of Anthony Bourdain, like, I don't know, I was watching some of his like last interviews, and he talked about how like he never did any of his episodes the same. Like a lot of times in television, like they'll keep like for food things or whatever, like they'll try to keep the same structure for every single like episode. And I kind of like I never do the same like structure for my posts, or I don't interview the same kind of people, or like the looks of my posts are all kind of like very unique and different. And so I think that that's really important too, to make sure people know, like you said, like there's no limits to creativity, and to just have fun with it. Like it's really a cool opportunity to have fun with it, and especially with the upcoming things of AI. And that's kind of my next question,
Yeah.
is just what advice can you give to marketers to be successful in the future? What do you foresee as the key elements to success in the future?
So yeah, AI is a big thing. We cannot deny it. Like there's so much you can get out of the AI, and I'm not talking about like creating content. It's more like, in my case, I use it. I use a lot for proofreading or just to even brainstorm,
Yeah.
ideas. Um, but mastering AI is a big thing. So you need to know the basics, and if you can even leverage it for like more sophisticated things, for projects or um, other things that you might need to build, it's a great ally. And then the basics of performance marketing, this is something that I don't actively do it anymore, but trying to get the mechanism of how to generate revenue outside of organic content, it's something that can be really helpful. I always see roles that job posts on internet that are looking for performance marketing people, and even other clients always ask me, oh, do you know performance marketer, like people that can help me grow on social media with paid ads and stuff like that. So it's a big thing, that it's a skill that you need to have. And finally, let's say project management. um, Project management, it's a skill that no one teaches you how to do it, really. Like if you find yourself someone in a company, or even like a friend of yours that helps you trying to get into that mindset, because I think like being able to manage different things is a skill that some people have it naturally. Other people that they're generally not good at being organized, which is fine, especially if you're a creative. You don't like things in order, so you need to learn how to be, a little bit more systematic. So it's something that it will really help you thrive in any role, really, especially when you're in marketing and you need to manage like social media projects, or you might be needing to manage a content calendar, like all this basic stuff, actually tasks that require a lot of project management.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess to kind of recap everything we've talked about. So we
Yes.
started talking, born and raised in Rome on the sea near the ocean, with parents who were always traveling, and you always had this sort of, it seems like, an entrepreneurial spirit to kind of want to push yourself and prove yourself in a unique way. And it sounds like you definitely, like, you're back in Rome, you started your business, and it seems very fitting what you're doing. And it seems like you're definitely exactly where you're supposed to be, and that you are on your way to great and bigger and greater things, which is very inspirational to me, and I'm sure to many others. And going from our JCU Shark Tank to here, really cool to see where you are now, because I think think that was like a year or so ago that I think you were still working in marketing for a company maybe. So very,
Yeah,
very happy for you. And I
thank you.
never forgot our conversation about Australia. So
Yes.
um yeah, and just my last question to you is just what is the general message or yeah, your general message that you hope to leave with the world?
Well, in a world where, sometimes it's easy to feel hopeless, being hopeful and being confident in the power that you have within you of changing things, I think is the biggest advice that I can give to anyone. Yeah, we're surrounded by lots of situations, even outside of our control, that kind of like bring us down, and the morale might not be at its highest. But being conscious that you can really make great things for yourself and for other people, it's the biggest superpower that you can have.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, Kayla.
again, I will link all of your different socials so other people can
Thanks.
check out your awesome posts and what you're up to. But thank you so much again for sharing your story. It was a pleasure to get to learn more about your journey, and I'm excited to see what's next.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you, Kayla, for having me, and congrats also on your project, because it's really beautiful. And
Thank you.
I hope it will have the visibility that it deserves.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay.